What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number, is it 450?
450.
Wow, that's crazy. My name is Steve, one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron.
And hold on while someone gets their notes app up, because I know there was. I can't believe I forgot this. Killbox.
That works. That works for me. And that was who?
John.
Oh, that's John. Hey, John. Good to see you and hear you.
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to think. So we got our required viewing today. I was my pick from last week, which is the recently released Fight or Flight. And then I guess, we'll get into a partial conversation about the new Mission Impossible movie. John and Ronald have both seen it. I think we're going to get into some details about how we'll discuss it when we get to that part of the show. And then maybe if you guys have seen anything else or any kind of news items that come up that you want to bring up, obviously always welcome to throw it out there. But let's start with the required viewing. Again, this is a newly released film. It's still in theaters, called Fight or Flight. This is an action film starring Josh Hartnett, Katie Sackhoff, probably the two people that most people recognize. First-time filmmaker. Again, I mentioned it last week that it kind of caught my eye because Josh Hartnett was on, I think it was Jimmy Fallon or Seth Meyers, I can't remember which one, and he basically called the director out who was in the audience, James Madigan's the filmmaker, and was like, hey, it's a first-time filmmaker, he's here actually supporting me, I want to call him out, and then he brought him up on stage with him, which was really cool, and he went up and kind of was a part of his interview. I just thought that was such a kind of fun, selfless thing to do. But yeah, I was aware of the movie a little bit. I'd read some stuff about it. It's gotten really good reviews actually. And had basically been described to me as kind of like John Wick in the air, or, any of those kinds of Raid in the air, mix and match all you want. But, I just thought it was a good time to watch
train
it.
on a plane. So
bullet train on a plane. That sounds better. I like that. I like that a lot. But for that vibe, any of the things that we just said, it kind of, I think, delivers on that vibe overall. But had either of you heard of this film? I like to always ask that before we get started. Registered it all on either of your radars?
I was about to say that's a silent no from Ron. But I had just seen trailers, or somewhere I had seen an ad for it, and then I had seen images of Josh Hartnett's face. But which, by the way, is it Hartnett, not Hartnett? I'm not correct. I'm not correcting you. I just didn't know. I honestly,
Hartnett. Hartnett. Josh Hartnett. Yeah,
Hartnett. Okay, Hartnett. He's what he caught all of our hearts in.
Exactly what happened. That's right.
So yeah, I had seen his face, and I had sort of maybe wrongfully lumped it in as he's the scary bad guy on the plane. That's what I thought it was he's the Cillian Murphy from, and that's Killian Murphy, isn't it? I'm just wrong with names.
Yeah, in Red Eye.
But in Red Eye. So I thought, this is him continuing his sort of fun recent period of doing slightly outside things, and I will go on record as saying that I was never a Hartnett guy before, but I think I'm becoming a Hartnett guy. I'm just going to say that right now.
John. Let's go, John.
I just think he's hit that. A lot of guys hit that. A lot of actors hit that middle age where they start doing something a little different, and I think he's had interesting choices, and it's fun to see someone kind of feeling that out at a point where they maybe seem a little more seasoned or weathered or something. I don't know. It's like whatever that young man thing is that I'm always so suspicious of when a hot new actor hits the scene. It wears off with time.
Yeah.
So you just see a young actor, you're like, I figured you out, bucko.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm like?
Not
I'm like,
today, Sonny.
It's so easy to impress everybody when you're young and beautiful and everybody likes you. But also, I held his haircut in Halloween, whatever that was, H2O.
H2O, yeah.
I held that haircut that became so omnipresent, which I hated. I held that haircut against him for decades, and I only recently got over it. I really think it was Oppenheimer, where I was like,
oh, right.
I loved every moment that he was on screen, and I realized, he's not fully a character actor. He's still kind of like a leading man type, but I think he's a little more interesting. He's like more willing to take his lumps. And actually, Ronald, I was thinking about you and some of the action stars we've talked about on the show, and how some action stars have a real ego about entering into that realm of action star. And I think the people who aren't necessarily thought of as action stars, even though Josh Hartnett has done a lot, I think that it's interesting. Like, I thought about Nobody watching this film a little bit too, of like, anytime you take a person who's sort of washed up and they come out. Ronald, do you know what I mean though? Because we've talked about this. Some guys don't seem to be willing to look like they could lose a fight on screen.
Yeah,
and I think that right from the opening scenes of this, he plays a guy who could totally lose a fight.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. I like that a lot. It adds to, or somebody's just like, it's kind of like I'm not motivated to kick these people's asses because my mission's not quite clear right now. And then when they're like, it's about your brother, you're like, wah! Yeah. I love that, man. And Josh pulls this off like that. Like, it's something about, this sounds strange saying this, man, but I got kind of emotional seeing him in Oppenheimer. It almost felt like a classmate. He's like, oh shit, the classmate's like, he's drunk at a party. He's like, you know what? I'm going to be an actor and I'm going to be in a fucking big time movie. And you're like, you're handsome, man. I hope you do. And then you end up seeing him in something years later. He's stuck to his guns, man. Right. Even the stuff that he's been in before, you know what? Yeah. It's like this prestige that movie had that he's always going to be associated with now. So it's like, even if he winds up going the Nicolas Cage route, you can always say Josh Hartnett was in Oppenheimer, like one of the better movies of the past 20, 30 years. I'm maybe you say 50. Yeah. But there's something really cool about that, man. I enjoy him.
Not 40. Now. 40's out of the question. 20 maybe, 30 maybe, 50 probably, 40 no. Oh, by the way, I forgot to put this background image in. There we go.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You know what it started to become too when the stuff started to happen? That other train movie with the Indian dude that was just murdering people, and they were just like crying over the corpses.
What was that?
We did that recently, right?
Yeah, didn't we do that for required viewing?
And I bought it. I bought like a physical copy of that movie. I like pre-ordered it.
How have we forgotten the name of it?
Who picked that? I can't remember. Did I pick that?
I think one of us picked it. Me or you.
Apparently, if people are dying on a train, Steve's got to hop on this.
Yeah, I gotta get in there, man. What was that movie called? It was. I did pick it, and it was. Oh my god! It was one of those ones that you'd heard about it for a while, and it finally got distributed here. Wow, I have to look it up. I don't know. Now I feel horrible. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like everything that you've been saying about Josh is like very on point for me. And I think, I mentioned last episode, like just picking this, it was like, whether it's the Hartnett Assance, if that's happening for him, because
the Josh Assance almost sounds better.
Josh Assance, I'm fine with either one. Honestly, both work for me, and I hope either work for him.
Josh, let us know. We don't want to.
What do you want? We want to try to promote what you prefer. You want
maybe he doesn't want an Assance. Is there another? Is there another wordplay thing you can do to somebody's name to imply that they're having a moment?
Right. I just feel like he's got a lot. He's got a lot going right now. It seems like, and as an actor who really hadn't really been very visible or present at all. I know he had that really popular TV series or that streaming series, the one with Eva Green. I think we talked about that. What is that called? Do you remember? We're just on fire today with the remembering stuff. It was like it's had to do with like vampires or Dracula.
Yes,
I never watched it, but I've heard like great things about it. Penny Dreadful.
Oh,
that was
yes.
That ran for like 3 or 4 seasons. It had really great reviews, and that's always one of those ones that's on my list that I want to watch. But like, really, he hasn't been in a whole lot. Some indie films here and there, but like, really, I feel like Wrath of Man is where he started kind of coming back into the focus a little bit. And then he had the Operation Fortune film. He was in some of the Die Hard episodes. He was in the Black Mirror episode that was really popular. What else did he pop up in? Clearly Oppenheimer. He was an episode of The Bear. Trap was last year, and now this. But yeah, he's just got like a lot of cool stuff coming up. He's got like a rom-com coming up. He's got, I don't know. I just liked seeing him a lot. Like I loved him back, in the early aughts, or even the late '90s, like The Faculty and H2O and 40 Days and 40 Nights. Even just like the movie starness of Pearl Harbor. Not that that was a good film, but like what they were doing or trying to do with him and Affleck.
Do you hate this country, Steve? Do you hate this country? I said, do you hate this country? If you don't think Pearl Harbor was a great film,
America. But I don't know. I've always rooted for him. In a nutshell, I've always rooted for him, and I'm excited to see him doing things and things that are kind of connecting, or at least has a following or some love around it. But yeah, this one, I thought this was a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, like I felt like whatever it was sold to me as, I felt like it was exactly that. I think he does a great job kind of carrying this movie and kind of that star power you were talking about, John. Really kind of the focus of the whole film, and it's just game for the whole movie. It comes off like he had, and even like seeing him talk about it, like at the interview I mentioned with the director, just seeing him talk about like how up for the stunts he was, and you hear everybody talking about that now. Anytime a movie comes out that has action involved, they're like, "Oh, I did my stunts," and that's amazing to hear, and like it's exciting to hear. But like just seeing you could just tell they had a lot of fun making this movie. And I think there's a moment in the film like when they do the little dump of like that the plane is basically full of contract killers, right. And you see all the things coming up on the screen, like all the different languages translating. I'm like, okay, there it is. Like that's the angle right there. And not that it hasn't been done, like the John Wick, again, that's the John Wick of it.
It's totally like, John Wick. Everybody needs a John Wick. That seems to be the thing that we've figured out. Every actor that's got any kind of stature is like looking for their Wick.
Absolutely. Like, yes, you mentioned nobody. Yes, yeah. You're like, if you're game for doing this, a lot of them work, and like, Nobody's got a sequel coming out.
It looks fun as hell too.
Is an amazing franchise, got spin-off movies coming out, spin-off TV shows. Like it works because like if it's good and entertaining and moves, they are successful, and a lot of it is because of things like John Wick, and I would even say like The Raid, even Bullet Train was successful. But I don't know. I just thought this was a fun action thriller or a fun action movie. I love the idea of the putting them on a plane and just how bonkers it goes. Anything with when someone busts out a chainsaw on a plane, you're just like, all right, how'd that happen? But let's go. It's like
I wrote down these three, the subtitles that come up if you've got subtitles on that come up in a row: chainsaw revs, fleshy squelching, passengers screaming. And I was like, this is good storytelling.
You can put that on title cards, like in a pitch book, and be like, this is what it is. I'm like, I'll buy a ticket.
That and Killbox and Toad Venom, I think you've got to get across. But also, there was just some funny moments we haven't mentioned yet. But part of the joy of this movie, in fact, I would say for me, and I hate to say this because this is like I'm not a big Katie Sackhoff fan. I just don't. Sure. I don't often find her very convincing. I feel like she turns everything one click too far for me or something. I just don't get it. I know that a lot of people love her though, so I feel like I'm not going to. It's just not I just can't vibe with that actor's style. But I feel like that side of the story was sort of like, okay, every time we cut to them, they're just kind of in an office or standing outside. It just felt like they need these scenes to tie certain things together and explain them. And 100%. I felt it was kind of flat and unconvincing. Whenever we were back with Josh Hartnett and Charithra Chandran as Isha, the ghost, I mean, their chemistry was great, and I really think that like their action chemistry, where he's a guy who's like the sleeping bear that's just waking up to this action, and she's this person who's got secret moves and has got like 20 years on him in terms of youth and agility, but doesn't give the image of somebody who can fight. I just feel like that chemistry was really cool, and I think that like as heightened and silly as the story gets, because you're right, Steve. Once you're on a plane and everyone on the plane is a contract killer. It's so stupid that you're just rolling with it, or flying with it, I guess. Yeah. And by the time he's jacked up on Toad Venom and he's seeing everything as a beautiful ballet, a psychedelic ballet, and he's putting a pickaxe in a woman's head, as he is behind me here. Whoops, I'll point to it the right way.
Yeah, there it is.
That's very natural. No, I just think that it's that kind of movie where you kind of know what you're getting. There's a tiny part of me that was a little bit like, oh, okay. When it went to Heightened Town, I was kind of interested in this slightly more, and I hate to, it keeps sounding like I'm making puns, grounded thriller that I thought it might be, where a guy's on a plane trying to figure out who the ghost is while before someone else does. I could have seen that being a really cool thriller, but once it started embracing total B-movie qualities, I was just like, yeah, this is going to be fun. And I mean, you named a bunch of them. These are movies that we know. This is a slightly more cartoonish version of that kind of what you get with Nobody. Sure. But yeah, I mean, we know, we like it. Like, this is a good formula. Just about any actor who's willing to take a few lumps can work in a story like this, where the whole thing is about like, why are they fighting? Why is he getting involved in this? Is he being manipulated? Does he know what's up? Does he not? The whole story then becomes about like him and or Lucas, his character, and Isha the ghost. Like, they're sort of figuring out how they can negotiate the situation and maybe both come out of it alive. And I was starting to say that the movie had a little bit of unearned sentimentality at the end, and then the character comments on it. You know, he says, "Don't get all sentimental on me. You're going to ruin it." And I was like, okay. The movie had me. It's very clever about what it's doing. And so I think that as alternately scenes of like some of that kind of like stupid stuff mixed with really clever stuff, I just think, it can be a really fun mix. And I do think there's some really funny lines in it. I just want to say like a couple that stood out to me. Even though sometimes the plot of this movie is almost like a little kid wrote it. If you've ever played with like a 7-year-old and they're coming up with a story, or like a plot generator bot spit something out and someone was like, yeah, we'll just run with it, you know, because it is a little convoluted. But I love this when she's on the loudspeaker and she says, "I'd like to thank everyone on board who hasn't tried to kill me." And I just like the rhythm of when he said, would you rather I knocked you out and zip tied you to the Sky Marshal? To that little nervous guy. Also, I just want to say, you guys maybe aren't there yet, but you're about to hit it. I'm a little older, so I've already seen this happen. When actors who are younger than you do their washed up middle-aged characters, it's just a moment. You have to sit back and say like, okay, Josh Hartnett, he's 4 years younger than me or 5 years younger than me. And he's now at the age where he can play guy with a paunch who walks kind of funny because he's been through too many fights and didn't quite heal right. It's like, man, I can't believe Josh Hartnett is now a washed up middle-aged guy, but he is. But I mean, you know, he looks trim in this. Like, you know, he put on a little weight for Oppenheimer, and he still had a little of it on for Trap. Although he looked good in that too. But I'm just saying, he seemed kind of, maybe he's getting ready for this rom-com that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's I forget which book that is. It's one of those based on a book, or like a big not the one that, maybe it is the one that, what's the Blake Lively movie that was big last year? With that author, I can't remember her name. Again, super prepared, clearly. I'm trying to remember which one it is. Is it Verity? Yeah, Verity. And actually, is that the one? Yeah, written by Colleen Hoover. It's called Verity. It's actually directed by Michael Showalter. That's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
But that's with Anne Hathaway and Josh Hartnett, Brady Wagner. I mean, he's like top billing on it. That's pretty cool. I guess Brady Wagner's the kid in the film. Dakota Johnson. Yeah, it's a pretty cool cast. But it's kind of like a drama, not a comedy. I'm sorry. It's a drama, mystery, romance thriller. Are the tags on IMDb? It comes
from Michael Showalter. That's interesting. It's interesting that comedy is not one of those. Unless you said comedy and I missed it. It's not one. No,
actually, doesn't. I thought it was for some reason. Yeah, I thought I read that Showalter, somewhere.
That's his.
Maybe I had seen that before, and that's maybe what I'm associating with. Yeah. Maybe I thought it had a comedy thing to it, but
So if you eat body wash, will it make you vomit? That's one note I had about this movie too that I was wondering about. Is that like a reliable thing? Because it seems like there could be something in soap that would naturally make you have that response. I was just wondering if that's something everybody knows.
I always had the same thing, and it's probably somebody's probably answered this already, but I never actually did the legwork. It makes me think of Wedding Crashers, with the eye drops and giving you diarrhea? Like, is that a thing?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I guess, right?
It's a weird thing to make up if it's not true.
It's not true.
But I do think movies should be allowed to do that kind of stupid stuff. You know, like if you're not like, let's all go look it up and say the movie's wrong. Who cares? It's a movie, you know. Like also, for instance, the way she had those vials of what looked like medicine, and then she peels it back, and she's like, "This is toad venom." That's so silly. That's what I mean about like a 6-year-old came up with it. It's just like, okay, sure, yeah. That's what you'd have. But I also loved his text when he texted Katie Sackhoff and he spelled it wrong, but just killed someone.
Yeah.
But it's just KILDSOMONE.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
It's really funny.
But yeah, no, I thought this one was a lot of fun, honestly. Like, I think it's pretty much what's on the packaging, and I think it doesn't hurt that admittedly, I really am a big fan of his, and so it's been very cool to see him in a couple things that I thought he was at least very good in the least. Like, I didn't really like Trap as much as I thought I would, but I thought he was really good in it. But this one I thought was a lot more entertaining and moved so quickly. You know, not going to be bored watching this. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Who's up next, John?
Well, it's me, and
it's me.
I was giving this one some thought, and because we're about to talk a little bit about Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and it came up with Ronald and me last night that I haven't seen Mission Impossible 3 yet. But
interesting.
I'm gonna kick that down the road a little bit. I'll watch it eventually. But Mr. Tom Cruise. There's a movie of his that I haven't seen in a while that I love. And I realized it's one of those movies that I have very strong feelings about, but I haven't seen it in so long. I think there's whole chunks of it that I don't even remember in that much detail. And so it's with some pleasure and trepidation I tell you guys, you're in for 3.5 hours with Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
It sounds good. I haven't watched this in a while.
I haven't either. My suspicion is that Tom Cruise's character. My suspicion is that Tom Cruise's character, who is like a proto men's rights activist douchebag, is going to seem like now there's a million of him. Whereas when this movie came out, he was like a fringy idea or a character that seemed extreme, and now it's like, oh yeah, there's Andrew Tate and a million guys like him out there. So I think that's going to be chilling. But I also
just fought 100 people.
But I also think it's going to be interesting to see Philip Seymour Hoffman and Jason Robards and people like that we no longer have with us. And, John C. Reilly very early in his career. Everybody's in this damn thing. So let's sit down and get emotional with Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia.
Cool. Magnolia. Okay.
Wow, do you know where that's available by chance?
I have not looked.
Let's see. Magnolia. I thought that... It normally has the stuff. It doesn't have any of the...
Yeah, it looks like it's just for rental. I don't see it on streaming. Which, again, this is one of the ones I was wondering. It feels like a film that may not be on a streaming service.
Right. Well, it's only on. It's $2.99. It looks like, so it's not too bad. But it's,
right. Yeah. Rental or purchase. Yeah. Two. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's not a bad rental at all.
Oh,
you can buy it for $5 though. I mean,
3 hours and 8 minutes. Oh, so I was wrong. Guys, I overshot so that it would. Now it sounds short, like a brisk watch. Only 3 hours and 8 minutes.
Yeah, almost 3 hours. It's brisk, baby.
Almost. Speaking of 3 hours, though, the movie we saw last night, Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, was 2 hours 45. Right?
Yeah, man. That is the Final Reckoning. Almost 3 hours long. It's crazy, especially if you got a poop or something like that, man. I was thinking, here's something that I'm going to say very early about this movie. I am a piss pot. I get a little bit of water in me and I have to pee. Yeah. I did not leave at any point.
Yeah, wow. I didn't. I thought I was going to feel it. Like, I really thought. Like, sometimes even if I want to see a movie really badly, and this is the kind of movie, it goes into the category with like Star Wars movies or Indiana Jones movies or, comic book adventure, whatever kind of movie where I don't want them to be super long, but if they're longer, I'm just like, maybe we get a whole other world, or maybe we get a whole character arc that, like, I don't mind getting more of whatever that thing is. I'm still enough of a child that I'm like, okay, cool. Whereas if it's like a drama about people, and I hear it's that long, I'm like, oh boy, like, where are they going to go that's going to be visually interesting enough? But, usually good movies earn their time and bad movies don't. It doesn't matter how long they are. But I did worry when we sat down to watch this movie, Ronald. I was like, I don't know that I'm in for 2 hours and 45 minutes of just sitting. Also, it's an old-fashioned chair that doesn't have a footrest on it. And so I'm sitting there going like, wow, they expect me to just sit up for 2 hours and 45. But I didn't really feel it either. I mean, there were moments where the movie, I felt the way it was stretching itself out, but I didn't feel physically worn out by the act of sitting there. So
yeah, for sure. I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think rather than this movie being just too long, the action scenes, that sounds weird to say. Some action scenes were entirely too long, and I think some of it was just like, a lot of it was because of the stakes of the stunt on a real level and on a movie level. They really filmed the shit out of it, almost over-filmed it. There were like 10 angles for everything. So if I punched you in the stomach, Steve, in this movie, it'd be the back of your head, the front of your head, the side of your head, below you. Where you just like, oh,
because the coverage is just everywhere.
The coverage is everywhere. And that's kind of a testament to what Tom does, man. Like, they really made it a point to be like, this is him. This is not a stunt double for this. Look at his face as the angles change. And I thought that was, they really made it a point. The stunts were incredible in this. I don't know how they did any of the underwater stuff that they kind of hint at in the trailer. I don't understand. I don't know what was like movie magic and what was the stakes that Tom Cruise had this time around. I didn't know that part. But all right, pet peeve. This did a lot of previously.
This is heavy on the but let me just go ahead and, before we go too much further, because I do think we should let people know we are not going to spoil the plot of this in this conversation. We're not even going to talk too much about specific things that happen in the movie. We're going to talk about our thoughts. We're going to leave our feelings about how this movie wraps up. It is called The Final Reckoning. There's a lot of thought and questioning and hype around what does that mean in terms of this movie series. We're going to let things simmer for a week until more people have seen it. But next week, when you come back, when we come back as well, we will have a section where Steve and Ronald and I all can talk about this movie in a slightly more aware, spoilery way. So we're gonna just let this movie breathe for a week, because part of the fun of seeing this movie might be finding out what happens, and we don't want to accidentally be coy in a way that hints around too much. So when we talk about stuff, I just want to let people know what Ronald was about to say. We're going to be safe for you in this conversation. So you're talking about, there's some underwater stuff that is like, that is both incredibly cool in terms of the way it's conceived and shot, and you wonder how they pulled it off, but it also goes on for a really long time. Really long time.
Wow.
And the stakes get bigger. It's like it's so I guess that's kind of the package deal with agreeing to watch this 20 or so minute action scene. It is an agreement that it's getting worse as he tries to make it better. Yeah. And the stakes are getting way crazier as it continues. And that's kind of cool. But
it's almost funny. Like, it's almost built. There's a lot of almost comedy. It's in that Indiana Jones level of having a character look at shit that's getting worse. I got to do this thing. Oh, now that just got harder because of this. Well, now I got to fix that. Oh shit, now that just got harder because of this. Tom Cruise is great at playing that moment where he looks up and goes, oh fuck! Now I got to swim through this to get to the thing. And there's lots of moments like that, wouldn't you say? Where like what makes this movie work is the kind of, I mean, again, some people don't like Tom Cruise, and I guess whatever. I think in this kind of thing, at the best moments of it, there's nobody better at handling that kind of. I mean, I keep invoking like Harrison Ford or someone like that, but he's one of those actors that can invoke so much humor and character through action. And I think that is a rare. There's a lot of people who are good at fight scenes, but not everybody knows how to do that little that little shrug or that little eyeball acting in the middle of a fight scene that tells you, oh, they're tired of this, or they really don't want to keep fighting, or they really wish this was easier. There's a moment in that underwater scene, Ronald, that we've talked about where the stakes are up to the point where he now has to do something really drastic to survive, and it's like, it's such a fun moment because you want to see it get worse and worse for this guy, but you also in this movie are thinking, well, that final's in the title, so what are the rules if we think they're wrapping it up? So there is a little bit of added stakes to it in that sense, or there are added stakes. The one thing I wanted to say too is you asked for a 3-word review, Steve, and I said Tom Cruise equals deranged, and I think equal counts as punctuation, so I'm not counting that as a word.
You're clean. You're clean.
And what I mean by that is, like, yes, he's a guy who's going to climb around on a biplane and, maybe even jump to another biplane or go underwater and do all this crazy shit. But also just the way the movie is put together, it almost feels like Oliver Stone in the 90s at some point, Steve, because it's so much quick editing. And with the villain in this being this kind of presence that we may know from the last movie, there's a lot of imagery. It almost gets into sci-fi territory. I mean, this series has flirted with sci-fi or a slightly fantastical form of evil before, but this is the villain in this is the most fantastical, don't you think, Ronald? Like the most like a comic book story or something like that. And there is almost a little bit of sci-fi stuff with the way that Tom Cruise receives information and the way that he acts on it. It gets crazy, and the editing around that. You remember in the last movie, Steve, where they would have one character start a sentence and another character pick up the next thought, and another character pick up the next thought, and it's all these angles that sort of, break the rules of when you're in a scene, how you get geography of the scene. Like it's just, this movie has a lot of that in it, and I don't know why. Is that a Macquarie stylistic choice, or is there some way in which this movie is cobbled together in different ways that show the seams in that way? I really don't know, but the way this movie gets around that is just cutting. And I'll say one more thing and then I'll turn it over to you. Like, there's a moment when, Steve, in the movie where someone makes some reference to Ethan Hunt, who I think was just there, and someone's like, wait, where's Ethan? And then it just cuts to a shot like out in the woods of Ethan Hunt doing his run. He's just running away, and it's like, am I supposed to think it's kind of funny that the movie is sort of implying that when he has to get from one country to another, he just runs. He just runs.
The thing you're talking about is I was telling them last night, I had only really heard it in Ocean's 11. That was like the first time that I heard it, like the piecing together sentences. It's like, so you want me to go upstairs into the lodge, go downstairs into 500 feet of concrete where we will blow something up, and you want me to grab it in 30 seconds because it's like, why are we doing this the whole movie? But I think it's the idea that everybody's so ultra informed about the stakes of the movie that, it's kind of that way. I will say
they have
this,
to keep re-explaining them. That's maybe a slight problem with this kind of movie, is when you have to keep explaining the stakes to make sure people understand what anybody's trying to do.
For sure. There's something that I thought about while I was watching this movie that really gave me the warmy feelies inside. I think Tom Cruise has sneakily made Angela Bassett his queen in a way in this movie. And, it kind of showed in the last one. And I think that, like, this team, it's funny, man. Like, it feels like, I would think, seeing the way that he is, that Tom Cruise only likes people that are equally as famous as him. That's what I think in my head. But I think that he loves giving people a chance. And if you see the way that the previous characters kind of blossomed in this movie, from the people from Dead Reckoning blossomed in this one, it really is a testament to kind of it feels like an ideology change in the way that Tom Cruise is handling this whole thing. Like, it's almost like, I'm getting older, I need help.
Well, it's like he's becoming like an actor's actor, or he's like a booster or something for the people around him. I totally get that. You're right. Like even somebody who's seasoned like Shea Wiggum, you sense in this movie Tom Cruise likes working with Shea Wiggum. Do you know what I mean? You sense that if Tom Cruise didn't want Shea Wiggum's energy in this, he wouldn't have like pivotal scenes with him. But instead, he gives that character moments where you can tell Tom Cruise likes sharing the screen with this actor. And I think you're right. It's everybody in the cast. You feel like, I mean, I know this sounds corny, but this might be what you're getting at, that like it seems like Tom Cruise loves everybody in this movie.
If you asked Tom Cruise right now what he thought about Shea Wiggum, he would tell him the precise episode of Bulwark Empire where he won him over. Like he seems like an obsessive about the people that he's around, and he might have a little bit more of a love of like, I mean, he says it, but I think it's a little bigger than I thought. A love for other people than I thought. Because this could have been, I think I was expecting this to be just a Tom Cruise thing. Like, I thought it was going to be Tom Cruise's face for 50 minutes straight. You know, it's like, but what I realized is it's something a little bigger. Like I said, I think this is like a gesture almost. Like, I didn't think about this until, like, I was driving home. This feels like kind of him being like, of course I'm Tom Cruise. But of course, what makes me work is all these people kind of working with me. The magic is in the elements that make the soup, not the idea that it's called the Tom Cruise soup. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's something kind of cool about that. And I got kind of like choked up when I'm seeing like Angela Bassett do her thing, and you know, Simon Pegg, and you know, it's just like these people are incredible in this fucking movie, man.
Yeah, Simon Pegg, like it's easy to miss how great he is in these movies. Yeah. I mean, just because he's so easy in it. Like, it's like he just knows what to do. But like this movie, I would say that if there's anybody, if we're wondering what's going to happen to Ethan Hunt in the quote unquote final movie, wondering what happens to Simon Pegg, I think, is the next thought you have, because he's the guy who they know this. They put him in danger in every one of these movies, you know? But like he plays that role perfectly. And this movie especially gets a little bit into that thing of like how much he's kind of the second in command in a way. Like when they're out in the field, that he's the one who might be that Ethan might turn to and say, get everyone out alive. You know, he knows he can trust Benji. That's an interesting turn. I will say, too, this movie does more work than any movie in history to make it seem like there's only one man who can do this. As much as we say he's willing to share the spotlight, the bad guys, the good guys, the kind of neutral politicians, everybody is like, we've got to keep Ethan Hunt alive, and we have to give him whatever he wants to finish this mission. There's a lot of that, and it's silly that the movie feels like it needs to bend over so backwards to explain that. I think we're willing to run with that because we know. But I also think that's one of the reasons this movie is 245, is because they spend a lot of time with the politicians and military guys who are figuring out how much leeway to give Ethan. They spend a lot of time with the bad guys and all the team members. There's a lot of characters this has to juggle. So in that way, it's like a big Avengers movie or something. There's like 12 characters that they want to give a moment to, and not just a moment, but maybe an arc. And I will say, Steve, I don't know what you know about this movie, but maybe avoid casting information, because there's a couple. There's a surprise character in it that kind of becomes the heart of the movie, and I really don't want to say more than that. Yeah.
I think that's one of the cooler things too. Like I was gonna say, there's a ton of fan service in this movie and references to all of the Mission Impossible movies, Steve. Like all of them. There's like literally, I was telling John, like I literally almost watched all of the movies pretty recently, and I'm seeing threads of all those movies. It's a lot of fan service that can maybe get overwhelming for people. But if you're in the right headspace about it, you know, it can be really fun. It's really rewarding, especially if you've watched them fairly recently.
Yeah,
you're like, oh shit, yeah. This is a catchphrase from this movie, or you know, it's like, oh shit, like, you know, it's a lot of cool stuff like that. Nice. So it really does reward you for being a Mission Impossible fan, a Tom Cruise fan, and you know, introducing a whole shit ton of cool characters. I'll say another standout is
Palm.
God, is that
Palm Clementif, the woman who plays Mantis? I didn't know if that's who you were going to say.
Oh no,
I thought she was great.
Yes. I was going to say her, but I was also going to say Severance's own.
He's fantastic. He's fantastic.
Jesus Christ!
What does he call him, Mister?
I don't know what your plan is, Mister.
Terrell something.
Yeah.
Tillman.
Trammell Tillman.
Yeah.
Tramell Tillman.
Tramell Tillman. Yeah.
I mean, but what's weird is how much the energy, like that, he's a little bit Milchick. You know, I mean, that's not just Milchick. That's his style might be a little quiet and halting and kind of musical, but he's really good. And here's what I think. I think you felt that the audience loves Severance. Like the audience we were with last night when he came on screen, people were just like, there was a certain like, oh yeah, there's our boy. Do you know what I mean, Ronald? There was a little energy to that. Mm-hmm. There was also a moment where Tom Cruise's glutes are perfectly framed when he's swimming in his underwear, and I heard a woman behind us say, "Oh."
Oh Jesus!
Look at his little butt. But he got
little butt.
Look at his cute little tushy. No, but there was his energy was really fun to see because it was like I'm just saying I think that actor has a vibe, and he's not just putting that on for the character on Severance. He's like he might be bringing some of his. You know, it's like God, what's the guy's name who says she? Like he does, he's done that in more than one movie. You thought that was just for The Wire, but that's actually something he brings. You know what I mean? I think that Tramell Tillman has his own little delivery style. But his character has, I mean, plenty to do to feel like if he popped up again, you'd be happy to see that character again. You know, but he doesn't have to do more to feel like you can see why that actor would take this role. So I don't know.
Everybody was special, man. Like it's really hard to say pinpoint, but those are some of the people that stood out for me. Palm was incredible. The villain from the last movie. And it's there's some and then what you also look forward to, and since you see these people, seeing them together. So like you'll see like, oh, this person's dope, this person's cool. Let's see them in a scene together. Oh, cool, this person's cool, this person's cool. You know, and it pays off in that way. So yeah, all around.
Haley and the Atwells are in it, and they're great. And who else? Let's see. Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman, who you may have seen in the trailer, he has a moment, and he has one moment that I thought was maybe unintentionally funny, but it can't all work perfectly. But it still is something to do. I mean, there's even a little bit of an arc to his character, and he's just kind of a military stooge. But no, it's if you can accept all the things we've been saying, which I know you can't, Steve, but I'm saying this to the listener. Yeah. If you can accept all the kind of silliness around this kind of movie or the heightenedness or whatever you want to say, like this series is still a lot of fun for me. We were talking about this last night, how I'm not a Fast and Furious guy, but I know that series has a similar sort of arc where, like, for a lot of people, it found its footing around the fourth or fifth, somewhere in there, and then had sort of a height that people really like. And then since then, it's been not as good as the height, but people still like to see what lengths are they going to go to top themselves, I think that like the last couple Mission Impossibles to me are in that zone of I'm happy to see what they do to top themselves. But I think 4, 5, and 6 are probably where it's at for me. I think that might be, at this point, those are still my three faves. Maybe next week after you've seen it, we can all rank our all of our Mission Impossibles.
Yeah.
Where, like, I guess in general, again, to keep this kind of spoiler free, I guess in general, where would you rank Tom Cruise's hair in this film amongst the MI films? This is important stuff to me. So
you know what, Steve? I'm going to say in some scenes better than others. I think there's some early scenes where there's a little bit of fluff and it's over the ear and it looks a little, it doesn't quite work for me as much. But later when he's mussed by action, it looks great. So, but I do think you could see him. He's at that point where he's wrestling with his age. Like he's at the point where he has to make a decision to maybe start to go a little gray and to maybe, like Ronald, you said you noticed an incision or something in the scene. But I mean, like his face doesn't look weird yet. He's still credibly playing a kind of ambiguous grown man, but he's not really leaning into the fact that he's pushing 60. And he's, his body, he's in great shape, so he doesn't have to hit it too hard. But
I watch a lot of Botched. I'm able to watch surgery incisions. I can see them now.
You're a botch watcher?
I'm a botch watcher, and he has a great person. That's what I was gonna say. Like whatever he's doing, he's
No,
doing
there's
it
some
well.
scenes where it looks really great, and then others where the light hits it in such a way that you can just see the. And I'm only talking about like the sort of like the hair, that the look. You can feel there's a little bit of maybe trying to hold on to that deep brown color. That it would look kind of cool to see Ethan Hunt with salt and pepper. So I hope Tom learns the lesson that a lot of those great older actors and actresses learn, which is like if you embrace your age just a little bit, it kind of earns you a new slot. But I can also see why for him letting go of that, it almost is like. He's probably neurotic. Although he did say recently he wants to keep acting till he's 100 or something. So like, cool. So I think that was him letting us know that he doesn't intend to die doing a stunt for a Mission Impossible movie. That was what I read into that. That's why he might be stopping doing these movies. It's just because he doesn't want to end up saying, "Well, what if I jump into a volcano that's active?" Like he doesn't want to take it too far.
Ethan.
By the way, Steve, you'll agree with us that it was really nice of Ving Rhames to get up from his nap to come over and be in this movie.
Oh my god.
Oh man!
But it's great to see all those returning characters.
I love this connection with Ethan. Man. It's like, it's funny. Like he should be kind of maybe one of the like guys out in the field. He creates so many inventions, and then he just like. Here, Ethan. This explodes upon contact when you drink it twice and spit it out. He's like, what? Why don't you just? Why, I don't know how this works. Why don't I try that myself? It'd be cool to see him in the field, but he's a.
Ronald, you make me want to develop a Simon Pegg impression, so I can just hang out with you and we can just talk to each other as Benji and Luther, because that's great.
Thank you. But go ahead, man.
Steve, go ahead and see this.
Go ahead. That's what we got here. Go ahead.
You know what's funny? If we would have said the opposite,
right? What if we'd said, yeah, fuck it. Right.
Done with it. That'd be crazy. He's like, nope.
No, I did lean over to Ronald about 20 minutes in, though, and just say, this movie is insane. Because of all that. Like, Steve, because it'll be like a scene with two characters talking, and they'll say, how did you find out this information? And then it will cut to the other scene where that other character is talking to another person and getting the information, and then it cuts back and forth in that, and then it cuts back into the scene. I mean, it's almost cool, and it's almost like, oh, this is dizzying in a cool way. Yeah. But it also felt like, oh, this feels like the editor was really trying. Like, again, I can compare it to like an Oliver Stone movie where it just feels like there were some really creative ideas about how to work scenes together in the editing, and it doesn't make it like. It wasn't like hard to take. It was just kind of surprising that it for so long. Do you know what I mean, Ronald? It really feels like maybe the first half hour of the movie has a lot of that in it, where it's really setting a lot up. But there's also a really great fight scene in the opening scenes. There's in the prison, that fight scene.
Oh yeah.
Where there's some great like characters kind of communicating with just eye acting, like like going back and forth. You'll know it's really great, and I think that might have been the biggest laugh in the movie, and that was
There's an action scene that isn't. Like you can't directly see, and it's more somebody's reactions to it.
Oh, that's good.
It's a bunch of little cool things that they do like that. I think it's just it feels special, and it feels like John said they threw 80 things at this one. This one feels like the most experimental. They were like.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. For this kind of movie.
Is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing for the movie? Okay.
No, I mean, it makes it crazy. It's like, I think if people can understand the idea of seeing a movie and thinking it's an insane movie and thinking like that's both great and crazy, you know what I mean? Like, I think that like there's people that love a movie because it goes for it, and I think this is like maximalism, as opposed to minimalism in the way that it's put together. This is like a lot of budget, a lot of stunts, a lot of actors. And maybe there is some kind of warmth or human quality they bring to this franchise that people like to sign up for it. But I think people are drawn to the ability to do physical stunts, and I think that anyone who signs on to these movies at this point knows that they're probably going to be in some action that's going to look great, and be really stylish. So no, it's like, I think you'll know what we mean when we say it's just insane. But like it's the kind of insane that if you're up for it, I think. There's just not that many movies made on this scale. Like even the score has that lush, sweeping quality to it that is just constantly getting you going, and constantly like finding a new plateau to take you to.
There is one thing though, I will say, Steve. I mean, you may see this as it starts to surface. It may be described as a W word, one syllable that's just thrown around by conservatives about some of the messaging
okay.
in the movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I think that it's a liberal script. I'll say that. There's some ideas thrown out there about media, about a lot. It says there's a lot, and I'm wondering if that's why somebody may have seen it and been like, "Oh, it's taking a stance on something." You know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels a little bit. It's like it's in our current moment. It doesn't have a lot to say about it, but it definitely paints. It's like it's hard not to draw associations when they talk. Certain things that come up in the movie are very much kind of ripped from the headlines. It feels.
Yeah. So that's the one part that I'll say may stop somebody that doesn't want any like messaging in their movies. And I have to say this. I gotta say this. You guys are fucking idiots. Anybody that doesn't want to see messaging in your movie, everything has messaging in it. Anybody that feels like that, turn this podcast off because that doesn't make any sense. Everything has messaging in it, whether you realize it or not. You go back and look at anything. There is some sort of messaging.
That's like the people watching Star Wars, like watching Andor, that complain that Star Wars shouldn't have gotten political. Yeah. You know, and it's like the Empire's been an allegory for fascism from day one. You know,
that's the idea of the story,
right? It's literally like set up to tell you how it happens, or whatever. Yeah. So anyway,
and it kind of makes me
not
feel
my
like,
Star Wars,
my Star Wars with all these political. But it makes me feel like Tom might be on an end of the spectrum politically that I didn't expect him to be on.
Right, or willing to.
Oh, willing to explore.
Willing to say that, or willing to even just I know what you mean. I thought that too, Ronald. I was a little like the newest season of Survivor, which is one of the few reality things I'm kind of addicted to, that my wife and I watch. And my wife, my partner. I'm trying to start saying partner.
Okay.
It's my partner, but it doesn't have the same ring to it.
It just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't flow as easily.
Doesn't roll. And we were just saying like, because by the way, if anyone watches Survivor, that was one of the most satisfying. When a sneaky person wins, I love it. Because I don't want it to always, when someone's like a good player or whatever, that's cool. But when someone's a good player but also has a little game and it pulls some skullduggery, there was some skullduggery this season.
I like that.
But everyone was polite. Anyway, and I said it'd be interesting to see them take this new era of that show, because it almost feels like the producers and everybody are like, oh, you know what? It's better if this show doesn't have faults, like conflict on it. There's enough conflict without making it like there's assholes and villains. This season was relatively villain free for that type of show. And I said it'd be interesting to see them with this current tone of this show, like deliberately plop down some MAGA person or something like that in the middle of all these relatively normal people on this show. And and then I said, but I bet they would never do that, because Survivor is meant to go down the middle. It's meant for everybody. And it's like whatever you think about it. It's CBS, it's Mark Burnett's production company. I don't know if he's still involved, but it's his product. Like, they wouldn't want to politicize, even though that would probably be great television to see people get really into it on that side. They wouldn't do it. And I think a movie like this, it's like, it's interesting to see them take any kind of stand, because you would think they would try to thread that needle of going down the middle and not seeming like they tipped to one side. But this movie had, if not like liberal or progressive ideals in it, it did have sort of an anti-warmongering, anti-hawkish kind of stance, that it was trying to. And also this whole fear of who controls the information and who has access to the information feels very current, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Cool.
So yes, we'll be back next week to talk about Steve's feelings and the ending, the final part of the final reckoning.
Wow, it's crazy.
So what else has everybody seen? Anything good?
I was going to mention, I did watch. I didn't go to the theater this past week, but I checked out the documentary called Wick is Pain. It's only relevant because we talked at the top of the show about John Wick's kind of influence on a lot of action films that are coming out now. And not only kind of what Wick as a franchise did for, David Leitch, Chad Stahelski, again, Keanu Reeves, the genre, all these things that kind of took off as a result. I mean, in some ways, maybe saving Lionsgate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like ripple effects of that franchise, but there's a really cool documentary called Wick is Pain that came out I think last week. But I checked it out while I was on vacation. I think it's on Apple TV. I think it's where the documentary is. But it really is just kind of like a really awesome just making of the whole franchise, like from 1 through 4. With background, I really enjoyed the background that it spends talking about Chad and David's background as stunt performers, as stunt choreographers, as second unit directors, and just kind of their climb from the bottom to the top of that hierarchy and that ladder rather, and kind of what they did in getting John Wick, and kind of where it's kind of sent them on their separate paths after the first film, because kind of Wick is now Chad's thing. Like it's he follows the franchise really. Like he was heavily involved even like with the ballerina stuff and the Continental stuff, and he's kind of like the overseer of the franchise, I guess, in a lot of ways. But David Leitch is definitely a big part of what the franchise is and what it started as. But I just love the behind the scenes, like, production stuff and last minute financing problems that, almost tanked the first film. And I just love Keanu Reeves as well. Like he's such an interesting actor, interesting person, hearing him speak. He's kind of like so like Zen, like a guy who has the Matrix and then gets another franchise about almost 20 years later, 15 years later. But if you like the Wick franchise in general, it's a really great behind the scenes making of kind of doc about the franchise, its key players, and maybe where it's going in the future. Again, I mentioned Ballerina is coming out this summer. That's like in the world of John Wick, and there was the Continental TV series. I think there's other stuff in play still, but if any of that sounds interesting, it's a really fun doc. Lots of great interviews, kind of talking about that really cool balance of like really top tier actors and actresses that the franchise has kind of attracted, and that mix of them with like legendary action stars, international action stars that come to play in the John Wick world. That's something that I think is maybe a little more unique about this franchise, is that you can have Academy Award winning actors and actresses in the franchise as it gets deeper into the series. And at the same time, they're just pulling off the bench of like legendary action stars of across the globe, from indie B level action movies of the 80s and 90s to like, Japanese legends. And, it's just a really cool franchise. I really respect it. I love it. And, it's a fun doc. I was really, really fun watching it. So, yeah, that's on Apple TV. It's called Wick is Pain.
Cool. Wick is Pain.
What about you guys? Anything else you check out beyond MI8?
No, man.
Okay.
It's been not much for me. What about you, John?
I saw Final Destination Bloodlines.
Oh,
how was that?
It's like, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about this series, but like,
I love them.
I mean, it's like then you know. So I think it definitely ranks. I mean, I didn't really think about how it fit in. Like a few months back, I had watched all of them relatively recently, and I had sort of strong opinions about which one had the best characters, which one had the best kills. I'd have to kind of go back and freshen my memory. But this one is like definitely like, I don't know, the team that put it together, Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein, in a screenplay by Guy Busick and Laurie Evans Taylor. I don't really know what else these people have done, but I know the story by credit includes those two screenwriters and John Watts. So, I mean, John Watts is somebody who I've come to trust quite a lot with genre stuff, like
Sure.
from the Spider-Man films he did for Marvel to the what was the most recent thing he did? Why am I spacing on that?
Wolves?
No, what was his
John Watt?
Skeleton Crew.
Oh, yeah.
Which I loved, and I just think he's got a good tone that he can he can work up with this genre stuff. And so I think that similar to him able to step into Spider-Man and create something unique and fresh, and similar to what he did with Star Wars, I feel his influence in this. Like, there's a little bit of a human touch. The characters are all in the same family in this one, which makes it interesting. The way they get together when bad things happen and the way they react to one more of their group being gone. It's a new dynamic to have it be a family. And it's also, I don't know if this is true of all of them, but it happens over a short enough period of time where you can kind of, I mean, it's still insane. Like the things that happen that then this group of people go, oh, can you believe what happened last night? And it's like the thing that happened is insane. But I don't know. It's the compressed timeline and the family connections that are already there. It just makes a lot of what these types of movies have to work to establish, which is, why are these characters getting in the same place? How are they finding each other? Who's the one pushing it? But it's like, oh, you could imagine if this happened to your family, if one family member dies last night and another one dies this morning and another one dies this evening, the remaining group that gets together would be like, what can we do? So I don't know. Sure. I feel like the movie, they do a good job. That doesn't mean all that stuff works perfectly, but it's the orchestration of it and the way that it's shot. They know exactly what they're doing with creating tension around these scenes where you can, and what they do a lot now, and I guess they always have, is like show you 3 or 4 things that you think might be about to happen, but they're not actually the thing. And sometimes those things turn into a cause and effect, a domino thing where, this then affects this, which affects this. But sometimes that thing that you think is going to be a thing turns out not to have been a thing, that got diffused, but this other thing you thought was diffused turns out to not. Anyway, I wish they didn't show as much as they show in the trailers. There's a couple of moments that would have been, there's one moment in particular in a backyard that would have been a huge surprise if it weren't tipped off in the trailer. The other moments in the film, I think, are a little bit better. You might think something's going to happen to somebody from the trailer that actually in the film doesn't happen. But there's one thing that they spoiled that I was like, oh, that would have been one of the most shocking deaths in the whole thing if it hadn't been spoiled. But it's still, you're watching it for that tension, and it's it's a theme that works. It's like it makes you walk around and look at everything in your world after that could kill you, So it's like, Psycho made people afraid of showers and Jaws made people afraid to swim in the ocean. This is a movie that works because we all have that thought anyway, a lot of times, and certain situations maybe more than others. You can be like, I'm weird if I'm around this, or so I think that it works well, and it's definitely on par in that sense. And I will say, even though he definitely seems rather frail in this, it's great to see Tony Todd in what I guess was his last performance. But that's one way this movie really does feel like it's not quite a legacy sequel, because there's really nothing much to reboot in these movies. It's just death. But and it is funny too that the point of this movie is, guys, death is gonna get us. We've got to stop that from happening. But it's like, we all live with that possibility all day, every day. So it's like, I do think there's something about that that's both silly, but all in the terms of what the movie's doing, but it has a little zing. You do feel death over your shoulder sometimes. It's cool to see that Tony Todd got to pop up and sort of be the physical manifestation of what's happening in this story, but also kind of this movie gives him a little bit more of a storyline as far as who he might be and how he might be part of all this. So no, I enjoyed it. I do think at an hour and 50 minutes, it might be a little bloated, but I think that, again, some of that's just because there was some character stuff they're trying to set up, and it's an all new group of people, as these movies tend to be. And they want to make sure you get like some surprise moments where you think something's going to happen and then it doesn't, and they really draw out some of that, like who's going to die. Someone's going to die in this scene, but they keep giving you moments. Like there's a moment in this where a person stands out in the middle of the road and they're like, come on guys, what's going to happen? And you're just waiting for them to get flattened by a truck. And so of course they aren't. But then what else happens is, you know what I mean? Like the rhythm of that is something they've really gotten good at, is making you think what's about to happen. And there's at least one moment that I was really surprised. This is a very gory film, but I was, CGI violence doesn't quite have the same impact, but there's still some moments in this where they really linger on like what happens to someone's head or what happens to their face. And head and face trauma, where like someone's head is mushed or whatever, that's always like half of their face is still there, that kind of thing. That always is gross, even when it's totally CGI.
It looks like Guy Busick. That name rang a bell. I looked it up. So he's heavily involved with the radio silence team. Like he did the Ready or Not written.
Okay.
He wrote that. the Abigail and both of the Scream and Scream 6. Yeah.
I mean, you can feel that. That's kind of that little spike of unexpected wit that I think I was kind of getting at, that I would attribute to sort of what I think of as a John Watts, mark. But I can see that being part of those movies easily too. So. Nice. But I think people know what they're in for. I mean, this is a little bit like Mission Impossible, where it's like, if you're a fan of this series, you're gonna want to see what they do with this, and it's definitely not a low point for the series. So mileage may vary. I can't wait to see it. But I'm going to say, go ahead. I will say this: there's a character early in the movie who says sarcastically to somebody, "Oh, you're tearing me apart," and yes, it does happen.
But of course.
But I mean, you notice those moments in movies like this. Like, there's a moment in Mission Impossible where Simon Pegg says, "Oh, you're going to be the death of me," and like, it puts you on edge. You're like, "Uh-oh, what? Is that going to later seem like it means something, or is it not going to seem like it means something?" And I think that I'm always looking out for writers being cute with that kind of shit.
Yeah, that's wild, man. Yeah, I'm excited to see this one. I was actually relieved. I got to admit, I saw how well it did opening weekend. Like, it did like 50+ million.
Oh wow, it did.
And
wow.
It like triggers that universe. We always talk about like the release window to digital. It triggered that whole thing that Universal has, where if it makes over a certain amount, I think it's either 30 or 50. It might be 50. That basically they exercise like the decision on whether they keep it in theaters more than the 17-day window that you normally see. So I know that they were talking about it coming out, 2 Tuesdays from now. But I saw they announced that they're going to have it in theaters. Like, I think it's going to be like 30 some days or 34 days before it comes to digital.
Oh, wow.
I get simply because of that, like, that it did over $50 million, which is, that's amazing.
It is.
That's
especially in this climate, man.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the horror in a lot of ways is still working, especially revitalizing a franchise like that. And, great word of mouth, great reviews doesn't hurt either,
Well, I mean, did I just see this, that it has made, how did I end up on the soundtrack here? On a $50 million budget, it's already worldwide made 121 million.
That's right.
So,
yep.
Wow. I mean, they spent, that 50 million is a pretty big budget for a movie like this, frankly, which maybe is testament to how much of a franchise this is and how much of a sort of bankable, like, this feels like them doing that. This feels like them pumping a lot into a franchise that's got some recognition and a lot of love behind it, because this is one of those series like Scream where a lot of people will talk about it being one of the most consistent or entertaining horror franchises, like it,
right.
And when you look for that modern, if you're one of those people who likes to say they don't make them like they used to, these are modern franchises that have their own energy and their own feel, that audiences really respond to. And I saw it at a matinee with a decent sized crowd, and they were definitely into it. I mean, they were definitely rolling with the moments. I would have liked to have seen it with a packed house, frankly, because I think this is exactly that kind of movie that's fun to hear people.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, that would be cool. That's the slight bummer of me not being able to see it when it opened, because I did want to see it with an audience too. But oh well. I mean, there's no question. It looks like this is gonna be the biggest film in the franchise when it's all said and done. I know it's already got the highest domestic gross of any of the films in the franchise, but even globally, it's only like 30 or 40, I think, away from the franchise high.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, truly a revitalization, a relaunch. I mean, what they do next is basically, no brainer. But always been a huge fan of the franchise, and just an incredible idea. I always talk about, like, my friends, like, we talk about just franchise ideas for horror and things like that. I mean, God, what a genius!
Yeah,
and just the staying power of, like, you don't need to. Each movie doesn't really need to continue anything from the prior. It's always fun to see how the ways in which they've kind of tried to tie them together.
Yeah.
But, I'm excited to see that one. Definitely want to check that out in the next week or so. All right, I think that's it, guys. Movieshmovie.com is the website. You can go there to subscribe to the podcast on the platform of your choice. We also have youtube.com/movieshmovie podcast if you want to subscribe to the video version of the podcast or the audio version of the podcast, or just subscribe to the channel and check out some of the shorts that come out, which kind of break the episodes up into different topics, and you can kind of digest those and enjoy those at your leisure, at your will, at your preference, whichever of those work for you, or maybe they all work for you.
I think people should listen to the episode, then watch the episode, then watch their favorite clips, because you will be like, "Oh, these clips hit so much harder when you've watched and listened to the episode
it's
already."
Like greatest hits kind of thing, you know?
Right. Well, also, I just want to mention to folks, just because I think we had another movie that we might have covered on the show tonight, but we haven't yet. But I think Ronald and I both are going to try to see it in the next week. So we should let listeners know. Friendship. This is a non-required viewing. Friendship, the new Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd buddy ? Comedy. Looks great and has a lot of. But I feel like they're hiding something from us in these trailers by not showing us something. I can't wait to see this one. So I will definitely have seen it in the next week. So I just will throw that out there. If you're a listener and you wanna, it's fun to watch something that we're going to talk about. That will be on the show, as well as Magnolia. So that's only like 5 hours of entertainment that I'm suggesting people take.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
No big deal.
All right, guys. Well, good seeing you both. Thank you to everyone who listened to this podcast. It means a lot, as always. Oh, and as always.
Is anything else as always, Steve?
You made our day. Thanks.